From complete heavy lift drones to flight controllers and operating systems, this company develops the hardware and software that is enabling the next generation of autonomous drone platforms. Welcome to Heven Drones, and welcome to one more episode of Builder Nation. For today's interview, we have Bentzion Levinson, founder and CEO at the company transforming the drone industry. So welcome, Ben. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I'm Ben Levinson. I grew up in New York till the age of 10 and then moved to Israel. About 5 years ago, I volunteered for a national project in Israel using drones to identify fires. That very fast turned into not only identifying fires, but a solution of how can we put out fires. And the solution we picked was drones. And that was my first interaction with drones on a real industrial commercial scale. And fast forwarding 5 years and a long journey, we're here at Heven Drones, about 30 employees, and launching actionable drones to the market.
They are not only eco-friendly, but they are also able to stay in the air for a longer time. And also you mentioned the expenses, like how affordable it is to buy these kind of drones.
So hydrogen drones, if you look at the long-term unit economics, they're actually cheap, right? If you look at the ability to source the hydrogen and the longer lifetime of hydrogen drones versus battery drones, like about thousands of hours versus hundreds of hours for batteries. In the short term, still a little bit more expensive than the battery drones because hydrogen fuel cell technology hasn't reached mass scale yet. But we already have agreements in place with our key suppliers that will allow us to get to scale at cheaper pricing than the battery drones. So it definitely is a solution.
Well, thank you for sharing as well. And I was looking through the website and I read that the octopter, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, can fly for over an hour and a half. But I was curious to ask you about the weight. Let's say that they have to move something from one place to another. How much can they actually take on?
Yeah, our first hydrogen system, we call it the H2D55, can lift 7 kilograms of payload, about 15 pounds of payload, which is sort of relatively small payload versus what we're building in the future. We are launching additional products that will take us above the 30 kilograms and then more closer to the 100 kilograms. So it really is a family of scalable technology. And the key is really the hydrogen fuel cell that enables a longer flight, right? If you have a drone that can lift significant payloads, but can fly for 10 minutes, that's very limited. There's no really use case there. So that's why the hydrogen allows us to scale, and the way we develop the technology is in a scalable manner.
What would you say were the main challenges as founder and CEO when you started talking on the business side?
In life, and the challenges and opportunities tend to be aligned, right? If you want to get a big opportunity, if you want to build something significant, there's going to be challenges. And if there's not challenges, then people are going to build that, right? And so we're afraid of challenges. With that said, I think building a company is challenging at many levels. And I think one of the most challenging parts is that, first of all, you're always doing multiple things at once. So on one hand, you're building a product and technology and that requires its own efforts. On the other hand, you're starting to build a business, and then you're building a team. And while you're doing this, you have to convince the world, whether it's investors, customers, key employees, that they should be joining your journey. So you basically have to do everything at once, and everything has to be done and always has to be improving. I think it's really like fighting multiple battles at once, like winning all of them, and they kind of all interconnect. It's definitely a challenging journey. It's also somewhat of a lonely journey. When you're leading a company, there's obviously challenges, and I think it's very important to hold on to the small wins on your journey, and also be able to always have this very, very fast cycle of feedback, right? Like what's working, what's not working. Let's fix what's not working. Let's continue holding to what's working. And this takes awareness. And when you're fighting multiple battles, to be aware about what's working and what's not working is challenging. It's really challenging. I think the key is really having amazing people and being alone in the journey. Look at history, right? You want to build something significant, you got to have great people doing this together, and building together around mission, I think is the key to solving the challenges, making them easier. Challenges won't go away. And I think that if your challenges go away, then you're not pushing hard. I think it's always important to push and expand that glass ceiling.
That is totally a great perspective. Thank you for sharing. I think that's the CEO and founder perspective. I wanted to ask you, I know that you guys survived the pandemic. You actually started 1 year before the pandemic started. So, did you struggle with supply chain or procurement or something like that?
Crazy times, right? We founded the company in August 2019. So 5-6 months go by, and all of a sudden the world is closed, you can't travel. And, meeting people and connecting people is obviously key when trying to build something. So what's interesting is that this is actually a very interesting opportunity, COVID, for us and for the industry. The Israeli health department reached out and said, hey, we know you guys see drone technology. We want to do COVID test deliveries. Can you take your technology, make some changes and do that? So we have a cool opportunity, the leading company, the first company in Israel, maybe even around the world, it's like a couple months into the pandemic, to test our drones in a very large city, flying over hospitals and doing COVID test deliveries. So that was a really, really amazing opportunity to get some exposure, but also to take our technology and use it for the COVID world. Eating or getting medicine and things like that is far. So the world has to stay connected, moving things around, at construction site. If it's hard to get employees to monitor a construction site, we should have a drone to do that. If it's hard to get employees to come to agriculture sites or things like that, drones are really an amazing solution. So that's why we actually connected both as a company and as an industry. I think the awareness of drones really grew dramatically in the pandemic. With that said, obviously many, many challenges in having to maneuver. We were still young enough that we were able to kind of build the foundations in a COVID world.
And one of the last questions, Ben, I would like to ask you, what will you say are the next steps for the company?
So we focused the first few years really on development, right? And when we're talking about development, not only are we a hardware company, and most of the world tends to underestimate how easy it is to get a couple of developers in the room and launch a product. But when you're building something, obviously that's a lot more challenging. And then also building up a scalability and going from prototypes to commercialized technologies. So right now we're really focused on launching to market. We have a few key use cases that we're on, both in homeland security and in the commercial field. And we're also focusing now a lot on our hydrogen product line, which is our new product line that really takes us from the half-an-hour flight time to the 2-hour flight time, opens up a whole new world of opportunities and use cases. And that's been our focus for the past year. We're now really over the next 6 months to the next year or two, really launching that at a larger scale and solving all the challenges, again, with amazing customers and partners needed to actually allow us to work at a large scale.
Last but not least, Ben, do you have any advice for future entrepreneurs or people starting on this drone industry path?
The advice is always tough. Everyone has their own challenges, right? I would say in general, it's important to believe, right? And dream big and just stick to it. There's going to be challenges, and I'll say again, there's not challenges, you're doing something wrong. You're not dreaming big enough. As an entrepreneur, as a leader, you have to be the one setting the bar. And I think you have to work well. The way I look at it, we have to make the world a better place. We have to push through.
Thank you for that great piece of advice, Ben. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences. Do you have any social media handles? Where can people find you or the company?
We're pretty easy to find. LinkedIn, website. I'm always happy to connect interesting people and help where I can. So even if someone just wants to connect, we're really happy to do that. I think we're living the best of times. Right. Challenging, but best of times. The potential is amazing.
Glad to hear that. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for being here. And remember, guys, that you can also find more information, interesting articles, interesting interviews, just like this one with Ben, directly on our website, ControlHub.com/builder-nation. We would love to hear from you. And once again, Ben, thank you so much for taking the time for joining the podcast today. It was great to have you.
It was my pleasure. Thank you and take care.